a long time. We'll also talk about some tough times and big lessons that I've learned along the way. Let's dive in together and make your venue the best spot for weddings. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Venue Coach. Today's episode, I actually want to revisit or expand on a topic that I spoke on last week about tracking data. And last week I talked about CAC, and which is cost to acquire a client, and how important it is to understand your metrics around marketing. So this is an additional conversation or an extension of that. So what sparked this episode is we were reviewing our Google Ads, actually yesterday, and we noticed that the ads had a big shift, and they shifted from, and actually our ads started performing about 100% better. So before we were spending about $600 and getting 4 to 5 tours a month from that. So actually pretty good, about $120 to $150 per tour was the cost, which is great. I'm happy with that. But we made a shift in our targeting, and once we did that, we were able to get $50 to $60 tours instead. So all, like, not just increase efficiency in the dollars, but by a margin. And so that was key insight for me. And compare that with, we're currently spending about $500 a month on Facebook ads, but those are only generating about 2 tours a month for us. And so it's now, like, before it was costing us double from Google to Facebook, but now with Google at being $50, $60 per tour, Facebook hasn't gotten better. Like, we're still working and trying to improve it and make sure that it's actually performing well and that sort of thing. But now we've shifted some of that money from Google, or from Facebook to Google, because it's more efficient. Why wouldn't I put that same dollar, which is more efficient, into Google? So we didn't completely nix Facebook, but we have it basically so that it'll generate 1 tour a month for us. But Google, like, the net increase that we will receive from that will be an extra 5 tours. And I didn't go, like, you might ask, well, why didn't you just put $1,500 in and see what happens? Well, there's a couple things at play. The first is I want to make sure that my assumption is correct before I go all in on that, and I'm willing to give it a month or 2 weeks to see how well it's doing, how many more tours we're getting. But then there's also where we are currently averaging about 9 bookings a month, and so if I go crazy on ad spend, then it'll be wasted advertising dollars because I can't fulfill, and I have to turn people away. And so it's like, oh, let me get more people in who I have to turn away, which doesn't, it's just a waste of money. But I was walking through the numbers, and we track how many leads come in. We track how many of those, and leads are when they fill out a contact form. So whether that's the contact, that's the brochure download, or they schedule a tour. And so those are all leads that come in. So we track that. So we get about 2,000 website visitors a month, and then total leads that we get is usually about 50 to 70, somewhere in that range. Actually, yeah, closer to 70. And then from there, we walk it down. Okay, of those leads, how many actually responded to us? So how many conversations did we have? And how many of those conversations culminated and ended in a tour? And I say ended, but continued on to schedule a tour. And then we track, okay, out of how many tours that we have, how many show up? And then of the ones that show up, how many of those do we book? And so right now, the Black Oak is getting on average about 18 tours a month on average, and we have an 80% show rate, which is about 16 of them will show. And then from there, we track how many of those convert. And so we have a 61% conversion long-term average over 2 years. And so we know that Of those 16, we're going to close 9 of them, which, wouldn't you know, is exactly where our our total absolute value of bookings is. We book 9 a month, and that's because those are the numbers that lead to that. So if we're able to add, because I increased our Google ad budget by 50%, if we're able to add 5 additional tours, then let's walk that back. If I go from 18 to 23 and I have an 80% show rate, then I would be able to see, let's see, 23 times 0.8. I would have 18 people show up. And then maintain my average, 0.61. I have 11 bookings on average a month. So I go from 9 to 11. And I'm not spending extra ad dollars. I'm just shifting those dollars over. And I'm willing to spend more. But the next thing is, well, how can I consistently book 11 bookings a month when there's only so many Saturdays? And we know that it's like 50 to 60% of all of the bookings are Saturdays, especially weddings, right? If you get weekly corporate or birthday parties, things like that during the week, I'm not including those. But for weddings, about 50 60% of those are on Saturdays, about 25 to 30% are on Fridays, and then the remainder are on Sundays. With like a few outliers, we have some Thursdays or some Mondays for just people budget couples, that sort of thing. And so if I go off of those metrics, then I have 52 Saturdays, give or plus or minus 5. So 52 of those, and then of that, 30 of the Fridays will book, and then 10 to 15 of the Saturdays will book. So that's about 100, which is less than 11 a month. So how am I finding room for an additional 122 100, or not an additional, but a total of 122 events? Well, what the plan is actually to go raise our rates at a faster pace than we already do. If we're consistently booking 10 or more in a month on average, so month over month for 3 months, then the plan is to just add or increase our rates, because that demand tells me that we have room to raise rates. If we are selling that much consistently, then we need to raise our rates. But right now, the problem isn't that we are having too much demand. It actually just follows based on our conversion rate and based on our show rate. And and having that information is power. It's knowledge. It is strategy. It helps me actually make decisions for the business that are going to drive it forward, because now I know what those metrics are. If I didn't know how much it costs me to get a tour from Google Ads, then I couldn't make that decision. I couldn't say, well, I'm going to put more money into Google. Why? That would be my next question. Okay, why? What's the reasoning behind that? If I didn't have a good answer, then it doesn't make sense to do that. And so you have to track your data so that you can make these decisions. So while this still revolves around CAC, but it's everything. It's everything you do. Like, what's the most important thing? It's getting the tours in. That's the highest intent event that a lead can do in our industry. So if they're coming to the website, cool, you need to know how many that is. Can you make your website better? Right? But I walk it back from the sale. So first, am I getting tours? That's most important. If I'm not, how do I get tours? That's then the question. I can run paid ads, I can do SEO, which is going to take a little bit longer, and those are pretty much the only options. So you can do that, or excuse me, and add in social media, which also takes a little bit of time because you got to gain awareness and following, and people need to see you, that sort of thing. So those are your options. So if you're not getting tours, how do I get tours? If I am getting tours, how do I close those into bookings? So that's you walk it back from the thing that's going to give you money, right? So am I getting tours? Yes. Okay. Am I getting enough tours? Well, That depends on you and your conversion rate. Now there is a limit. If I would say that if you're getting like 5 to 12 tours a month, that's not enough. You need more, and you're not going to have a very good profitable business with only getting 5 to 12 tours, especially if you don't own the property, you have a mortgage or that sort of thing, then you just aren't making enough money. So if you're getting 15 or more tours a month, then you're in a good place. It's like 15 to 20 is still like, yeah, you definitely want more. But then it comes down to, okay, if I'm above 15 and I am not closing, so if I'm only getting 40% or less on my closing percentage, then instead of spending more money on marketing, you should spend time and effort and resources on increasing your conversion rate. So we focus heavily on increasing conversion rates right from the beginning. And so we started in the 30% range, and we have just steadily increased that to where our long-term overall average is 61% and 64% respectively across both of our venues. And so we start there. But again, if you're not tracking this data, like tracking data isn't just a marketing thing. It's a everything, right? And so you can also track how many of our couples leave reviews and are we being efficient there. But you track the metrics that are going to drive the business forward. So, how many people are coming to the website? How many people fill out your form? How many of those people respond? How many of those people convert into a tour? And how many of those tours show? How many of those tours schedule a booking or a book with you? And then how many of those bookings are satisfied and leave you a review after their event? Like those are the metrics. Those are the things that we track and we care the most about. And from there, once you have that figured out, then it's easy to go into okay, well, let's if we can increase one of these by 5%, which one's going to have the biggest impact? That's where the power lies. So if I know that my Google ads are 4 times better than Facebook, like dollar wise, right? If they're 4 times better than Facebook, then I'm going to put more money into Google than Facebook. And I only know that because I tracked it. So this is me just begging you to track your data. Track it. If you'd like to know how we track our data, how we just keep track of everything, then let me know in the comments and I can put if there's a lot of interest in this, then I can put together like how step by step how we track everything so that I just want to know if it's useful. So I'm happy to do something like that to make sure that you guys are getting the information that you need to make your business grow. So I can't overemphasize how important it is to track your data and how empowering it is because it gives you information to make a smart business decision. So I will get off my pedestal here, or my soapbox, and I will let it go there. I'll stop beating a dead horse, but I probably won't. There will be more episodes where I talk about that because it is that important. But if you found this useful, if it was helpful to you, if it gave you some ideas and it left you're now pumped up and excited to track your data, which sounds goofy, but if you found this useful, please subscribe. Stay tuned for the next one, and I will see you there.